welcome to this Tuesday technique session. So this one's not live, but I thought I'd pre-record it because I wanted to cover off a question that somebody had asked following some of the trouser adjustments and trouser fitting that we'd done in the Tuesday technique series recently. Now, I apologise because I've scoured my emails and messages and all kinds of things, and I can't find who sent me the request for this full calf adjustment. So if that was you, then thank you so much for raising it. I did say I would cover it off and I hadn't covered it in the original videos. So this is just for you. And I apologise wholeheartedly that I can't find the message. So if it is you, then let me know. Drop me a note in the comments or wherever you message me. So the full calf adjustment, this is a trouser adjustment that you can make onto patterns. And if you remember, these Tuesday technique sessions were for people who wanted to work with commercial patterns and make some adjustments to make them fit for their particular body shape, posture, sort of weight distribution, any of those kind of things. So these fittings are all for you looking at your unique body shape and being able to adjust the pattern to suit you. And this particular one is for anyone who has kind of bigger calves or prominent calves. Maybe you're athletic and you've got more muscles on your calves. Maybe like me, you've got a little bit bad posture. So if you stand with your hips forward, sometimes it pushes your calves back. And what happens is when you try to make trousers or when you wear trousers is they start to catch or bunch up just above the knee, kind of at the back of the leg. So you start to get wrinkling above the calf, sort of in the knee area, in the lower thigh. And that can be due to the fact that the trouser leg is just catching kind of on the calf. So as you move or you walk, it rides up a little bit. And so this adjustment is for that. Now, if you just have generally fuller legs at the bottom, so your weight is quite evenly distributed, then what you might want to do instead is to adjust the seam lines, and I'll show you that. I'll show you what I mean by that when we go through the example. But this is more where the extra coverage that we need is particularly at the back of the leg, so on the calf. So if you kind of look at yourself and your calf shape is a bit sort of curved or banana shape, if you like, then it's likely that this could be the adjustment that would work for you. The other thing too that you might spot is where you're seeing the wrinkles at the back of the thigh, which is one of the sort of measures that means you might want to, or indicators that you might want to use this adjustment. The other adjustment that you might want is a low seat adjustment. So if you're finding that you're getting a lot of pooling of fabric on the back of the thighs, then it could either be because there's too much sort of excess kind of further up in the leg. So again, I'll talk about that and show you where you would do that if that was one of the options. So this is typically, you'll see wrinkles around the back of the knee area or just above that sort of area, and it might feel tight on the thigh as well. You could also see that if you look at from the side, that instead of the seam line hanging straight down at the out seam, you might find that it's kind of curving back towards the calf because the fabric's trying to pull round more towards the back of the leg. So if that's not hanging vertically, then again, that could be a sign that you could try this adjustment. So that's all the symptoms. And so let's just have a look at what kind of adjustment that we're going to make. So again, a common theme, as we've talked about in these previous Tuesday techniques, is that wherever we've got extra flesh, like where we've got the bust or if you've got a full bum, then we tend to need to add a little bit of extra width to accommodate that, but also a little bit of extra length. So we basically, if you imagine that you've got some kind of curve that's sticking out on your body, we need to be able to go over the curve, but also around the curve. So the adjustment that we're going to make is going to create a little bit more space for the calf at the back of the leg. Now, we're only going to make this adjustment on the back of the back trouser piece, but I'll also show you if you do just have generally a wider calf sort of at the bottom and you wanted to create more space, then I'll also just touch on that where you would make the adjustment on the back and the front pieces. Okay, so I'm just going to switch over my camera so I can show you an overhead shot of a pattern piece. So I've just got a little sample here that we can use, and this is showing the back pattern piece and the front pattern piece. So in the case where you just generally want more room, this is quite a wide pattern, so you wouldn't generally need to add maybe a huge amount here. But if you did want to add just generally more room for the whole of the lower part of the thigh, then what you would do is you would add you would kind of add more at the bottom on the in and out seam, and you probably want to keep that quite balanced, because what we're trying to do here is keep this grain line straight. So if we add lots on just the inside, then it's going to skew that grain line, and it means it's going to, when you try and wear it, it's going to try and wrap around your leg in a weird way, because it's going to try and pull that, or you might just get a kind of a big bell shape sort of happening at the inside or the outside. So if you're going to add width to the bottom of the trouser leg, then do that, try and do that evenly, split it between the inside and the outside, and do it on the front and the back. So for example, if you need to add an inch extra kind of in the width of the bottom of the leg, then add 1/4 of an inch at each of these 4 sort of points here, and then that will make sure it stays on grain and still hangs straight. But in this example, we're literally just going to use the back piece. And so this is the marker for the knee point here on this pattern piece here. And so if it's not already marked on your pattern, sometimes there's a notch here representing the knee. But if there's not, then what you could do is measure down from the crotch point to where your knee is, and then mark that with a notch or something like that. So just take tape measure to the top of your leg on the inside, and then measure down as far as where your knee is. And if you're making a toile, and I always recommend making a toile, then what I would be doing as well is, when I've cut this piece out in my calico, I would be marking on here, either with my chalk or with a tacking line, where this knee point is. So when you try it on, you can just make sure that this is in the right place. This is quite key to the fitting of this particular adjustment as well. So you do want to know that the knee, and this should go across the center of your kneecap or the back of your knee crease when you're wearing it. Okay, so the adjustment that we want to make is quite a simple one. So we're going to take a line up. We're going to measure to the center of the bottom here. So I'm just going to measure this and see how far that is. So it's roughly 2 inches, and my grain line as it's drawn here is actually on the 1 inch point. So I'm going to use that grain line as my marker point. If you haven't got a line drawn here, then measure halfway, and then you want to go at right angles to that and draw your vertical line, so that it's in line with the grain. So draw a straight line up from there to the knee point. Then the next thing that you want to do is measure up 4 inches from the knee point on either side. So we're just going to make a mark 4 inches. Now this is a sort of half scale, so I'm just going to go up. I'm just going to guess where that would be. It will probably be around sort of about this distance here. So what we want to do is make sure that we've got our marker points here, and then we're going to draw out to those. So measure on your own pattern, and it's around 4 inches up from here. So so what that's going to do is allow us to create a gap in the middle. So the next step that we're going to do is to then draw out from the knee point on our middle of our line, and we're going to draw out to these side points here. Okay, simple as that. So now we've got a Y shape going out to our points here. So this is on your pattern around 4 inches up from the knee point here. Okay, so then we're going to cut our pattern piece. And you know, we've talked about this before, but I always recommend tracing off your actual pattern piece. Don't cut your original, because then you can always go back to it. However, that's what sellotape's for. If you need to then put it back as it was, then you can usually do that as well, unless you're trimming bits off it. In this case, all we're going to be doing is cutting along this line, and then out but not through these Y-shaped lines here. So we're going to leave ourselves a little hinge point, as we've done in some of the other examples, at that out seam and the inseam here. Okay, so to stop this moving around, I'm just going to stick the top part of this down, just so that stays in place. And then what we're going to do is we want to open out. Can you see now how this is going to give us some more room over the calf? And so this is going to open out. Now it's also going to open the width of the leg here. So if you wanted this to be skinnier, then you might want to just taper this back in sort of near the bottom down here. So this is the area where the calf's going to be. And again, depending on where your excess is, you might want to measure down, sort of where the most prominent part of your calf is. If you measure down from the back of your knee, then you'll know kind of where you need the most room here. If I was trying this on with a toile, one of the methods you can use is to just cut up this back piece here and then see when it falls naturally how wide open that is, and then that might tell you again how much you need to adjust it here as well. But you can open this out, and what we want to do again is keep this. So I'm just going to draw a line, continue my straight line back down on here so that I've got a reference point. Oops, out of the way. And you want to measure evenly either side of this line, because again we want to keep this grain line in play, and we don't really want it to be skewing off either side. So as we're opening out here, let's say this is the biggest part of our calf and this is how far we want to go. So if this was, I don't know, maybe ½ an inch, then you can add this in here, so 1/4 inch on either side, and then that will give you your adjustment. And you can see it's not really changing the back of the leg here, because we don't need any extra on the back of the thigh. It's also not changing this these seam lines here. So when we join it to the front pieces, it will still match the length of our original piece. So once you've decided how far out you want that to go, then you can just stick that down. Now you'll notice here that where the original line was, we've now come down a little way from there. So this is what I was saying about adding a little bit of extra length as well as extra width. Now I've seen some of these examples where they've just squared this back off and just cut it here. I've not tried this adjustment for myself in this example, but I would say I would probably try and just blend this line here to start with, because I think you are going to need a little bit of extra length. So I wouldn't straighten that. I would just sort of curve that out to give you a nice line, then try it on and see how it looks. So at the bottom here, just sort of blend that, and then that will give you that little bit extra to give you the room over the back of the calf. Now, if you did want to bring this back in again, then again you could look at just tapering this back at this bottom bit here, but again do it evenly on both sides. So sort of gauge where you've started that, and then take the same amount off both sides and just shape that in, so that you've not got a sticky out point here. And that would give you, again, you could take it off the bottom, but you're still retaining the extra fabric here where you wanted it kind of over the calf. I did mention as well about a low seat. So if it is that you're getting more of the pooling of the fabric sort of further up, or problems further up, then what you can do with the low seat adjustment is that you can just add a little bit more to this L shape here, so you can kind of carve a little bit out of this space here. So and what this does again is just allow for a bit more room for your bottom in this piece here. But do notice that if you take room out here, then you're reducing this hip width. So you might want to also just add a little bit more sort of on the hip. Again, just blending that to the waist and to the knee, if you're going to make that adjustment. So if you're doing this low seat adjustment, so if you've got a low hanging bottom, and we've talked about this before in some of the other videos, then you can just take out a bit more in this space here, and that will give you a bit more room. And it will also, as you sew this to the other piece, to the other back piece, it will pull some of this fabric from the lower thigh at the back. Okay, so that's it for this adjustment. I just wanted to do a nice quick video to cover that off. Hopefully you found that useful. If you've got any questions or comments or anything that you want to ask me about, then please do so. I'll place this video on the Facebook page, and on the website, and by all means just get in touch and let me know how you get on. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.